welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons, monsters and serpents, to Brothers of the Serpent podcast. Coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 Tangent Cube of Science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed, high atop the Edwards Plateau. And we have a special show for you. Actually, we're doing a very special series of shows. This is the first one in this series. So the original plan was we were going to be starting a book report, but we've been talking to Ben from UnchartedX. And he recently came on and recorded an episode with us on cosmographia. And during that, we talked to Ben about, we've been going back and forth with him for months now about like, man, we need to do some shows with you. Maybe come on your show or you come on ours, and we're going to look at some of your footage and some of your images, and we're just going to talk about them. So,
but we wanted to do less work than two shows. So it was like, hey, let's do a Swapcast.
Yeah, let's do a Swapcast series. And he was down with that. So that's what this show is. We went for, what was it, almost 2 hours, basically? I mean, we were three segments, but almost 2 hours.
Yeah, the last segment was almost an hour.
Yeah, so I think we're just going to go ahead and cut right into it. So I hope you enjoy this. This is so there will be a video version of this. Ben recorded all the video. So he's going to publish the video on his channel, and then he'll send it to us, and we'll also get it published on our channel. But enjoy the audio for now.
I can't wait. And I've already done it.
Yeah.
Here we go.
This is a special podcast. We got Ben from UnchartedX here, and we've sort of teamed up on this. We're doing a group effort here, and Ben, we've been talking about doing this for a while. Doing a podcast together. So this is the first, hopefully, in a series. And what we want to do, like the plan has been Ben has all this footage, all these images of places that Kyle and I have not yet been able to go to, but we've been talking about on our podcast for years. So the idea is let's go through some of these images and some of the footage that Ben has, and we'll just sort of do a mystery science theater kind of thing and talk about it. So Ben, thanks very much, man, and thanks for allowing us to do this as a Swapcast. I think it's going to be really good.
I think so too. Yeah, the trick was always like trying to find a home for it. I came on your guys' show a while back now, which was a lot of fun, and then. We recently recorded a podcast with Randall on cosmographia, and then we're like, let's just make this happen because we'd been talking about you coming on my show. So we thought, why don't we just do it together, I guess, and just put it on both the channels, and everyone can do it. So for everyone on my channels, Brothers of the Serpent, I'm sure many of you know who they are, and go and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well as their podcast.
All right.
Although I'm in your world now too. I just got my podcast started, so I've got a few episodes.
How's that going?
Yeah. RSS. I'm hosting my own RSS file and all that, so it's just another thing I'm trying to stay on top of. I've got a bunch of episodes I need to release. It's just a matter of sitting down and, hacking it together and making it happen. But
yeah,
I'll do it.
All right.
Regularity really helped me there.
All right, good, because I'm
looking forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward to it because the way I've had to consume most of your content up to now is by audio. So you make these amazing documentaries, but I listen to most of this kind of stuff at work, I'm running a machine or whatever. And so I'm like, God, I can hear you talking about these amazing images and these videos, but I'm just listening. So
yeah. And well, that's why I did it, because I've got that feedback from a bunch of people that are like, wow, I listen to your videos in the car or while I'm doing something else, just have it on. So, and tons of people are like, do you have MP3s of these? So yes, that's the idea. And I think I say that in the podcast. I'm like, I'm going to just, because the interviews and podcasts I've done with people are the ones I've mostly released so far. But yeah, I'm gonna go through all my videos and release them all as just podcast episodes and tell people like, hey, there's a video that goes along with it if you want to hear it. Yeah, I'll get it.
Excellent.
Just artwork and RSS. That's the trick, right? You guys have the same artwork. I'm trying to do episodal artwork. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pain in the butt.
Yeah. Well, we have been shifting over to the episode artwork. So yeah. Got to embed it in the file and You know, I have this. We have this policy of like as little work as possible, which is the opposite of your policy, which is like you do tons of work.
Well, the perfectionist in me it's with the videos. That's what ends up happening. I'm still trying to figure out the right way to get more content out more frequently, but it's not from lack of working on it. I tend to they're all like long productions that are written and then take forever to actually edit the video. So yeah, I think I'm still learning a lot of the tools and techniques of doing that. Hopefully I'll get better. I got plans for this year to be a bit more consistent about, and part of that is doing things like this.
Yes,
I think, and I love the idea of like we're going to do this weekly for a little while. Just go through different sites, hit them, like watch the footage, talk about what we're seeing. I kind of do this a little bit in my live streams as well, and I think it'd be great to have you guys. I mean, just have some more people in there to have a conversation and point out stuff. And I know you guys are interested in a look at a lot of these sites. So
yes,
absolutely.
That's right. All right. Well, so what's
a good one?
The first one we're going to start with the Serapeum, which is you've done many shows on it, and so have we. So let's take a look here.
Indeed, yeah. So I'll just roll this. Hopefully you guys can see it.
Yep, looking good.
Yes, we've spent a little bit of time trying to set this up. The audio will kick in at some point in a little while, but this is all you see at the top of the Serapeum. You can kind of see the step pyramid in the background. So it's a little bit away, but the Saqqara itself is massive. It's like it's 7.5 miles long by about 3 miles wide. So it's actually a big site. That's not the Serapeum. That's I think this is the lesser galleries, which we'll get to. That's the actual entrance to the Serapeum.
Oh, okay.
Down the hill here, and there's actually that is another pyramid. That may be the step pyramid. Actually, I don't know if that was behind me was the step pyramid. That might be another pyramid.
Did there used to be sphinxes lining?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was an avenue of like 600 sphinxes. So this was clearly an important place in that probably late. It's attributed to the late period. I'm sure it was being used during if not the middle period, definitely the late period. And it was an important place that hasn't had an avenue of, I think, 600 sphinxes leading off.
Wow.
That way, behind us.
And so did they take them away before they knew that the Serapeum was there?
I suspect that the dynastics were using it as a ceremonial site of for whatever they were purpose. They were dedicating the box, or maybe they were just starting to.
Yeah,
I don't know, because it's only the one box that's really been carved into. But those small. I think they were the smaller sphinxes.
Right. Yeah.
I suspect that was done by them. Probably, in my opinion, if you grant that this site's probably older, and that they found it and they renovated it and they reused it and they pulled it into their culture, and I think they probably built the avenue of sphinxes on the outside leading into it. That would be my speculation, at least, because I really do think, and there's so much evidence of renovation in this site that. Yeah. I suspect that's likely what happened, because they did that at a lot of sites. You've got the avenue of sphinxes at Karnak, at Luxor, and they did that on their important sites. And I think they probably treated this like an important site. It's pretty profound when you go in there. Don't try and get any information about this site on Wikipedia, because they don't mention any boxes or even have a picture of them. But
so what do you think? Like, in the video now, we've moved down the entryway, and you guys have gone in the entry.
Yeah, the sound's about to start from my recording.
Okay,
yeah.
And the first thing you start to see is, number one, the walls and the ceiling are very rough. And number two, there's all these little alcove things, at least right there at the doorway. Yeah, they kind of are shaped like tombstones, I guess you would say, or little, but they're very shallow. So do you think that they had things set into those? Is there any information about that?
Yeah. So these were small steles. So there would be little offerings. Like these were
okay.
These were like little steles that were put in here. I think, again, all dynastic. They've all since been removed, but they would have been little dedications, little things. I think likely what you would have had happen is the priesthood was selling. Whoever controlled the site was selling space. They're probably selling offering space. It's like a sacred site. Go and put your thing in here dedicated to whatever. I mean, I suspect that was what was going on. I haven't really looked into like what's written on the ones, if they found any at all, because I'm sure that most of them were taken. I'm pretty sure Marriott found it pretty much empty. You just had these
Okay.
You have these things here. They're probably taken and, But as you go in the entryway, pan left, that's the lid that's a rose granite lid for a box that's in there around the corner that we'll look at. It has the nubs on it. It actually has a little bit of writing on it too.
Yeah, I see the nubs. Holy crap.
Well, there's a bunch. Well, on the nubbed boxes, there's a few of them. We'll get to look at them.
Yeah, they look very South American.
Yeah.
South American nubs.
I was here with Yusuf. He's the man for this. This footage is not from the recent trip to Egypt, although I have footage from that we can look at.
Yep.
But it's from a few years, I think 2016. This trip might have been. Anyway, skip to where it starts. So we went round to the right in this case, which takes you around in here. Here we go. In here and around the corner. And it's actually not a bad little speech from Yusuf just initially here. Look, because we're looking at the roof, as you said, rough tunneling. But even though it's rough, I mean, once you get into the galleries, they're perfectly straight. Like I do think that the tunnels themselves are quite an engineering feat, even though the builders didn't seem to care. That's why I think a part of it, why it seems to be functional to me is like, it was functional. They didn't care about how well they looked. The Egyptians, the dynastics definitely later on came and cased it, and they put limestone tiles all over it.
Mm. Yeah, the precision seemed to go into the boxes. The tunnels were just to hold the boxes, and they didn't seem to, they didn't much care. They just needed to get them down underground for whatever reason, right?
That seems to be what it was. Yeah.
Still an engineering feat, though. Yeah.
Definitely. So this is a sort of demonstration of just how dark it is as you go in around the corner. That we just passed the lid of this box in the hallway.
Oh, yeah.
But you can hear Yusuf, we turn off the torches here, and I mean...
We're in the tunnel. Okay. Just for 1 second here, turn off your torches.
You guys can hear that?
Yep.
It's happening.
Yeah, that's pitch black.
Yeah, it's pitch black.
There is nothing to see. Imagine working and cutting in the bedrock and moving with of course the broken pieces and the dust and everything outside. And what is the source of light that we're gonna use? There's nothing but a torch, a flame. Yeah. Because we call this a torch. It's not. It's electric torch, of course. But I'm talking about the flame. ولع النور يا باشا.
So he's talking about working on the boxes in almost darkness, using only a torch or a lantern or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the mystery, one of the mysteries here about the Serapeum is that there's no, you don't see any exhaust. Like you go to Dendera and these big temples that were definitely used in the Greek Roman period that covered in soot. And some of these are like 18, 30, 40 feet high ceilings. Just soot everywhere because that's the illumination was the flame.
Yeah. And
you just don't, you do have it in a couple of the alcoves, like these little alcoves on the side that we were talking about. A few of those, there's clearly where people have put candles and you can see the soot. It's like a trail just up the top of it, only like this big, but there's nothing like that in this. And they haven't cleaned it. There's just no soot marks in the tunnels.
Yes, we had.
I would have walked into that.
Huh?
I mean, you would have walked into that.
Yeah. So it's, and this is the box in the hallway.
Yeah. So that it almost fills the hallway.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. I like to say, I mean, we've built a floor around it. So if you want to, as we go through this, look for the signs of, human renovation, like modern renovation. Like we've claimed the site, we label as a tourist attraction now.
Yeah.
And we built a floor in here. And what I always giggle about is that the fact that there's a floor built around this box.
Right.
We weren't moving it any more than I think the dynastic Egyptians were.
That's right.
Yeah.
I can see it. You're right. The box is inset into a hole in the modern floor. Yeah.
And we just built the wooden floor around it. I mean, the other thing that I about this box, and Yusuf talks about the weight and about how many people. But one thing that I think is interesting too about this is that we haven't lifted it up, and there's no sign. You got to imagine if they had found the smallest fragment of wood, as in a sled, because remember the conventional theory about how they moved the blocks like this was on a wooden sled, and there's even sleds in the Egyptian museum, and that they dragged it. There was no, not a lot of. They might have been pry barring it at the end, but there's no, no wheels or pulleys, just like human horsepower is the Egyptian theory. And if they had found the tiniest fragment of wood underneath this thing, they would have decried the sled theory proven out. But they've never found anything underneath this box that was clearly in transit. They've not found any trace of anything like that. It's just sitting on the floor.
And that's that's a great point, because the box has the box and the lid separate from it has the appearance of like somebody was in the middle of doing this and then they stopped working on it and they never came back. So you would imagine that if that is the case, they wouldn't have taken the time. Well, we need that wooden sled. Pick the box up off the sled, take the sled out from under there, and then put the box back down. No, they would have left the sled there, and there would be pieces. So if they've never found any, that's a good indication that there was no sled.
Yeah. Yusuf does a good talk about. I like this little model about how many people it might have taken to move this.
Okay.
Some of them weighs over 70 tons.
So here we go. We'll talk about the weight of this.
How many people? We are talking here, the range of these boxes, not less than 50 tons. Some of them weighs over 70 tons. But let's say in the range of 50 tons, 50,000 kilograms. So let's say strong ancient Egyptians were really strong, and each person will drag 200 kilos. Okay,
That's a lot.
that's good. That's also to be functional. So that means 5.
That's 440 pounds, something like that.
And 5 times 50.
250.
So 250. 250. Where are you going to fit them?
Right. 250 really strong.
So 250 people to pull 50 tons, assuming you're moving, 200 kilos or 440 pounds per person.
Right.
And you just, that's the other thing about this site is that you just, how are you dragging this thing? And this isn't even the biggest, like this isn't even close to the biggest one that's in here.
Yeah. And that
this
also
is
doesn't,
that box.
that also doesn't account for the drag, right? That's
Exactly, right.
That's just the dead weight.
Yeah. Just being able to,
dead weight.
Yeah, dead weight. You're not having to overcome the friction of the floor and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it puzzles me to this day about how exactly they move them. It just doesn't seem the brute force approach just doesn't seem to work. You can explain it, I think, outside in the sure, 50 tons, it's possible. People can do, and you leave. You can make machines. You can make it happen with primitive methodologies, but in tight spaces, I think it starts to become a different conversation. You just got to. I don't know how you can do it, and particularly in the there's literally, we'll get into it, but
can you pause it there?
Foot of clearance. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this thing in the back with the nubs, it's set into this part of the wall that looks like the wall there is carved out for it to sit there.
It is. It's an inset. I don't know why. But that's actually the lid for a box. That's almost as if this was in transit at some point too.
And so they just shoved it into that little part of the wall that's like cut out for it to fit under there.
I guess. I don't even know if this has been moved in modern. I don't think we moved it, but yeah, it's been put up on blocks. It's been basically blocked up. Looks like limestone blocks underneath it.
Yeah, and they're really well done.
If you have a forklift, you need to be able to get your forks back under there after you put it down.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point. And this thing's sitting on the floor, though. This is the lid from the other box. And this is a good point, too, because we'll get to that. I'm sure we'll get to the question later about the scoop marks.
Right.
I just want to let Yusuf talk about this because in the boxes later, you'll see these scoop marks in the granite. And it's important to understand what's going on with those scoop marks and why they're there. And he kind of explains it pretty well here.
Okay.
Melted down, and it's not.
Yes.
What is happening here, the stone naturally has cracks. And what they are doing is emptying the crack so it doesn't extend and cause damage to the rest of the box. Like in this case, you can see the natural crack is right here. You see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're working around the crack. They're working around the floor.
They're emptying it out.
Yes. Emptying out
so the
floor.
piece can be more solid. This is a proof that when they are doing this, they are doing it for function, not decoration.
Yeah. So
Yep.
you guys follow along there? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is, drummers have to do this with cymbals. Like when you're playing those cymbals and they get a little crack in the edge, the idea is you take a drill and you drill the very end of the crack as it's working its way in, you drill a hole and it'll stop it. And then you can keep using that cymbal.
Exactly. Yeah. I haven't cracked any, I did crack some, but they were trashy ones back in the day. I just let them crack. But yeah, that's how you stop a crack. It's also in aircraft maintenance. I think they work the same way. They, they'll if they see any cracks, they can repair them or stop them by drilling a clean hole in it.
Yep.
And it just screams like, okay, why? If this is a single-use box that's simply going to be used as a sarcophagus and thrown in a alcove and buried forever, who cares? The crack is going to affect it.
Right. It suggests that they are going to be vibrated, right? Because you're expecting that crack to continue. This is what the point is with the cymbal. If the cymbal's just sitting in a cave, there's no reason to drill that crack.
Right.
But if you're going to keep jamming it, you know it's going to be vibrating and resonating. And
you want to keep rocking that cymbal.
Yeah, you got to keep rocking that box, bro. You got to cut out those cracks.
I like to say that it seems like solidity was important. Like the box had to be solid. It just had to be, rock solid. Like no faults. And in fact, it's an important point because we'll get. And you can actually see a cut in the roof there. I've not actually noticed that before. The
other thing that I wonder about this because this may not be right because they were these are underground, but cracks also can be elongated in stone by massive changes in temperature. If it gets cold and hot, right? It'll continue to fracture. So it could be that they were expecting it to encounter different environments, but it's weird because again these are underground. I also think of like water penetration. Has this place been flooded before?
Possibly. Yeah. I hear that point a lot. Many people suggested, maybe it was flooded and that's how they moved the boxes in here. I don't think so because there is an elevation change over the Serapeum as you come in and you'd almost have to have scuba gear to get down to the end. The other thing is you just can't float granite. There's not using the cavities that these boxes have.
That's not what I mean, but yeah, I agree with that. I don't mean that they flooded it on purpose.
And it could have been flooded. I get you. Tell me if you see any signs of water damage in here. That's the type of thing I'd like to. I've not heard that. Like significant water damage from repeated rainfall. I guess. Yeah, that would like an actual flooding. I've not. I didn't notice anything like that myself.
If these are. Let's go on the full speculation here. If these objects are very ancient, and they're Younger Dryas ancient, then they experienced torrential rainfalls, and this entire place may have been filled with water. And maybe the people who made them knew that, and they made them to be completely sealed. So whatever was in them was completely protected down in these tunnels. I don't know. I mean, trying to figure out what the function is. I think that it seems like they act as hermetically sealed safes, right?
Right.
Yeah, that would be.
I mean, that's definitely a function. Like they would seal hermetically. Yeah. And I've heard a lot of people suggest that. What the problem, my only issue with that is not issue, but question mark is if it's purely as like some people say, it's a seed vault or it's a storage for that type of thing. But in that case, why the precision again on the inside? Why go? Unless that's simply a function of the manufacturing process you have, and this is a point Chris made to me too. It's like making cars today. Like we make our panel gaps are so much smaller and better in cars today because our manufacturing processes are much more precise.
Yes.
So that's just an effect. Everything we make is kind of much more precise because our machinery and our tools are more precise. Maybe that's what happened here. Maybe they just had
Yeah, like I have a trash, one of those little metal trash cans in my house. It's way more precise than it needs to be because the manufacturing tools that they use to make it really precise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to point out too that another point to digging out the cracks is you want to know how far they go, right? You want to get in and make sure they don't completely go all the way through, or don't go too deep, so that okay, yes, we can still cut the lid out of this thing, and it won't. This crack doesn't go all the way as far as the lid is supposed to go, because if you want it to seal, and be protected from water, you would want to find out how deep that thing goes.
True.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd almost think this place had to be underwater at some point, particularly if you go back to that Younger Dryas, because it's, there's I read the quote when we were talking with Randall, and it's in one of my other videos, but he talks, even Petrie talks about the evidence for the Nile flooding to 200 or 300 feet higher, almost, just an evidence of massive flooding and rainfall. And it would have, and Yusuf also has talked to me about, I have yet to go and film it. I think the next time in Egypt I will. He thinks there's flood damage at the Giza Plateau that he can identify, like up near the Gate of the Crow and a couple other spots, which would be super interesting. So,
God, look at how smooth the top edge of that is. Oh my God!
Yeah, this is one of only a couple. So we passed by, but the limestone box was behind us. And this, let me just pause it here real quick, because we talk a bunch about this box because it's one of a couple boxes that actually has writing on it. There is. If you
I see writing, and then there's these long rectangular marks. What are those?
Yeah, do you think those are
like a false door?
Oh,
that may be
original.
That actually may be original, but it'd be the only box that has it.
Okay,
because I think that false door motif that's in a lot of places is original, and in a lot of cases it is, as you'll find it as well done. Polished and just beautiful relative to the writing. And this, even in this case, the same thing. And on the box down the end, they sort of scratch in. They've imitated it by scratching in a false door on the back of the box.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what those marks are on that other one. Yeah, I've seen those. What are the lines?
They've literally drawn like a false door. Like in that video we were watching, the resonance chamber, that shape is what they've drawn on the back of that box.
Oh, okay.
And then, so this is where it gets its name. This is the Serapis. We talk about this. And this is the box where the lid near the door is the one that sits on, that was meant for this, I think. One of the bigger, heavier boxes, probably like 70 so tons, is a huge rose granite box. Only one of two that probably came from Aswan. The rest of the boxes, the quarries are almost unknown. Like we know some of the black granite, some of the Wada Hammamet quarry, which is not on the Nile, which is the eastern desert of Egypt. You've got to actually haul that thing over, I don't know, hundreds of miles of desert and landscape and mountains and valleys. You can't just plop it on a boat in the Nile and float it up here. So that's the other thing. Like, there's only two boxes in here that are rose granite that probably came from Aswan. All the other boxes came from other places.
So that looks like prying damage to me on the edges there.
Yeah.
But these were all found open, right? So somebody pried them open.
Yeah, except for one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's very old prying damage.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like it, right? So the lid's been moved.
Yeah.
You're right. I think it must have been peeled off and moved at some point. And the rest of all had most of their lids have been shifted off. Or I guess that's the theory that the lid is for this box.
Oh, okay. It's not actually Well, I guess you could match the stone, right? Because the lids in the boxes were made from the same block. Yeah.
Same block. That's right. Yeah. Cut them off the bottom.
And here we have.
Oh, never mind. This is super loud. This is me fighting with my microphone. It's part of the fact that don't make the videos. I'm trying to mic and talk to him and record. So we'll come back this way. We've come in, we've turned left. There's actually a limestone box. The first box we saw, the complete one, is a limestone box. I think there's a chance that is a dynastic box that wasn't finished. And then you have this one, which is kind of the smallest box in here. Also has some scratched in writing on the front.
Oh yeah.
Interesting box. It's circular. It's not square like the others. It's way smaller. This is something very much like a lot of the boxes you see in in the museum. And the other thing is, this is the only box that has this tunnel behind it. It's like in this alcove, but it's like there's a tunnel behind it. And we'll go down there. You can't normally go down there, but you can. In this video, we hop over and, they light it, or they light some of it. So
yeah,
I think this is going to be super loud.
There is a room in the end of this tunnel.
We're going down.
The limbo one.
I think I saw a water bottle in the box in the bottom as well.
Oh no!
Yeah, the ubiquitous trash.
Yeah.
And this is the smallest.
I recorded when I stopped in that whole first part. Sorry.
It's me swearing at the camera. Okay.
Yeah, so this tunnel's pretty narrow. Yeah, it's like maybe 2 people wide max. Yeah.
Yeah, it's smallest tunnel in a very odd sort of space.
You think they were about to house it in this room? Or do you think it was already in and they were taking it out? I think it was already in.
Oh.
You see, these are the stones that they used to renovate. Right.
Yeah.
That they used to renovate.
So there's tons of limestone laying around, and we haven't quite got there yet. There's a lot of
the black box.
There was a lot of renovation work. Just the floor tiles. They had wall tiles. You still see a few of the plastered limestone wall tiles, but they built. I think the dynastics came in here and renovated and built floors around the boxes, and we'll see some evidence of that later on.
So just to describe for people listening, you guys went around the small box, and there's a tunnel, 50 feet.
Yeah, maybe a little.
Yeah, and then at the end of it, it turns right, and there's all this rubble, and it kind of ends in a little alcove. And Yusuf is saying that he thinks maybe the box was in the alcove and somebody was trying to get it out. Is that what he was saying? Yeah.
Yeah, he thinks it was coming out. We don't really know going in, coming out. Right. But it looks like there was a lot of work in here that's all been busted up. Like the granite floors have the limestone floors have since been quarried.
What happened here is in one of the eras, I believe it's the side pillar, they reused the stones, limestone, from outside to case the inside.
Yeah.
So has anyone excavated that pile?
Have they done that? I don't know.
Have they got, because I know I've seen from some of your other stuff that there's like other tunnels in here that they don't know where they go.
Yeah. So actually, we get over here. You can. We're about to go into that area now. We'll go into the closed off area in the next bit here, and then that's right. They in fact, these were areas that they didn't know existed prior to that. And on this recent trip, I talked to some people that are actually working on these sites. And I had it on. I mean, it's just a rumor, or it's what this. I was told by a guy that pretty high up sort of works on these places, is that they may have found an extension to this, and there may be as many as 20 more boxes.
Oh man, that'd be.
Oh my god!
Awesome.
Wow.
So it seems like the first thing you would want to do is to dig up that rubble and see what's in the floor. Like, is there another passageway going somewhere?
I wouldn't be surprised if they've gone through it and that's the pile of it. I don't know. I don't know if anyone has. If you listen here, I think you can hear the sound of the closed door opening. Hear this.
I finally got it, man.
All right.
There's the door. Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Well, so we'll go through that door after the break. How about
break?
That? Yeah.
We go for a break. Yeah. Cool.
Welcome back to this first edition of hopefully many explorations through Ben's archives and Brothers of the Serpent podcast and UnchartedX, going through the Serapeum. Is that how you pronounce it?
I'd say Serapeum.
Okay. We've always called it the Serapeum.
Yeah, Serapeum. But we're always pronouncing stuff wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Serapeum. I have a whole video on how it got its name. Actually, there's a brief because it's a good talk that Yusuf gives about it's kind of got to do with the Greek pronunciation.
Serapis.
Yeah, Serapis.
Yeah.
And then the apis, the balls. Which is not a theory that I think holds much weight. Which we can talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
As we go into so we came in through that way. Now we're going in through.
For a long time, they thought that the Serapeum ends here, and then one of the professors discovered that it extends.
So this is into Yeah, so it's not lit. This is an off-limits area normally. I mean, you can get in here. Obviously, they're putting infrastructure in here. It's a smaller set of tunnels, more alcoves. Only one box, and it's at the end, and you can kind of get flashes of it, but we'll get up to it.
We used to fill with plaster and then stick more of the limestone. But this fine type of limestone was actually taken from outside. And then you can see added.
That's actually a pretty good example of one of these alcoves. Let me.
So he's talking about the walls of the tunnel there.
Yeah, he is. So the walls of the tunnels. He's talking about the fact that you can see where the plaster was put on the walls, and they would stick the other blocks of limestone, and then you have these blocks of limestone at the entrance to these alcoves. You can see at the back wall here where there's a bunch of limestone tiles that have fallen. This is all rubble that's fallen down. Couple things to note, and Yusuf was right. This limestone's come in from outside. This is probably all dynastic work of them renovating the site. You can't see it well here, but as we go particularly into the main gallery with all the boxes, look on the sides of the passages. You'll see these large sort of alcove shaped, these arched shape little alcoves on either side of these big box alcoves.
Okay.
And those used to house granite steles that were shaped like false doors. They had that false door shape on them, and they were facing the box.
And then you can see added symbols. When somebody smooths parts like this to add writings or to house.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So they would smooth them over, they would plaster them over, and you could then add writing, or they would house a little granite stele or something like that.
Here is a giant false door from granite. And we're going to realize when we are walking both sides of the boxes, they have empty spaces in the walls.
Yeah.
Probably they house these false doors.
So there's a I forgot we had this in here actually. Like this is a granite false door. This is from one of those chambers. That may have been from one of the other chambers, but this is all granite, rose granite. This was probably what you would find in all of the other chambers on both sides of the box.
So it's a big granite slab. It's been broken down the middle, but it has this pattern of rectangles cut into it, each one successively smaller and deeper in, and it looks like a door. Yeah.
So is that, you think that's original work? Is it to the same quality as the boxes?
No, I think it is. I think the false doors, I do think that stuff, those shapes come to us from the builder culture, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so. And you often see it, and you see it imitated by the dynastic Egyptians as well. Particularly you'll see it on the big box at the end. It's drawn on a lot of shapes, but it's, in a lot of cases, the carving of these false doors is to that level of, really high quality work that you typically see, and I would generally attribute to some form of higher level of stoneworking. And this is also the important thing here as we get into it. You'll see signs of renovation, like these floor tiles. They've got hieroglyphs on them.
So that big one going across that's an actual tile.
This here,
yeah.
There's probably a number of floor tiles in here. Yeah, that have been added. And they have glyphs on it.
Yeah, they're upside down.
They're upside down because it was reused to renovate the site.
Yeah, so the hieroglyphs on this block here in the ground are upside down, and it's just because they've taken limestone from an older site outside, brought it in here, and renovated the site with it.
What?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
During the dynastic.
And in fact, let me mute this and we'll talk about it. And in fact, we know it's Old Kingdom because one of the things that there's some differences in the hieroglyphs themselves that are used to date the period that it was written. So there's certain symbols, like there's a little wavy symbol that they change over time, and you can date the sites in a lot of cases, or date the writing by the symbols that are used for certain words. So there's blocks with Old Kingdom writing on them in this site, but are in places like that where they're upside down in the floor, not ever meant to be seen. And it tells you that this is most likely a block that's been taken from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And reused and put into this site. So, it was renovated by the late period dynastic Egyptians, yet the site's also attributed to late period dynastic Egyptians. Yeah.
Okay.
it's yeah.
Yeah.
And so here's another example. This is like another empty alcove, but has a much smaller case in it, and it's a smaller room with a smaller indentation in the ground. And I think this is an example of they were probably building. They may have been looking to put a box in here. So again, if you imagine a box was in here, why is there writing on this block that's on the inside lip facing the?
Yeah, because you wouldn't have seen it. Yeah.
So this is like a later people's finding this, their attempt to mimic the other rooms and try to put their own box in here.
I think that the dynastic Egyptians likely added the floors in all of the rooms. My opinion is that they renovated it entirely. I don't think the original builders cared that whether there were floor tiles around the boxes or not. I think that all of that limestone work, all of the floors were added later.
Okay.
In my opinion, yeah.
So we're looking in the hole here, and you can see where they were cutting into the original limestone, and then above them is clearly tiles.
Yep.
And you're thinking that all those tiles were added by the later people who renovated it, whereas the hole may be original to the original builders.
Maybe. Or maybe this is an alcove that the dynastics dug out, or they might have dug the hole. It's hard to say for sure.
It's much smaller than the other boxes. So
yeah, this is like this is a small box. And when it comes to boxes, we're going to see the most amazing example of it. You hear my voice here, like,
It's like the largest one.
Yeah, this is my favorite box in the whole place. But it's you've got smaller boxes,
but it has a giant crack,
and you have big ones.
Holy crap! Okay, yeah, that's huge.
So this is functional. What's the?
So this box is sitting in a 90-degree turn.
Yep,
that hallway.
Parked right in the corner. It's literally up against the back wall and the side wall. Like it's in a corner. How do you get it in there? I don't know.
Who raised the lids up and put these little blocks between the lid and the box itself?
How we found it.
The lid almost reached a very.
We haven't. I don't know why.
Stage.
Well, on that small box, we lifted the lid up, but these other ones we haven't.
After this level is to smooth it, and then.
Again, look at all the different.
And the lid has a big nub on it.
Yeah, those are the handles.
Yeah,
obviously for picking the lid up.
That actually is a lifting boss. Yeah, that is a nub that's used as a lifting boss. I mean, it seems to be like that, right?
Yeah.
There's one on the other end apparently. So it has. This is black. This is a granodiorite.
All right, pause that.
Hang on. Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's a granodiorite. It's almost harder than sort of regular granite, but syenite, I think there's a name for it. But again, not from Aswan. This came from somewhere else. This may be Eastern Desert Stone. But when we walked up to it, maybe I'll just back it up and we'll come back to it. I know it's just stuff, but there's a lot to sort of notice about this box as we roll up. It's cracked. So there's a big crack in it. And I think that may be why it got parked at the end here. There's actually two cracks, and we talk about and it's not as perfectly finished as the other boxes, which tells you a couple things. Like the boxes were worked on down here. And you have the box in the hallway as well. It's rough and it's not finished. It's even much rougher than this. But this box, I think, when it developed the crack, they went, okay, we're done with this. We're going to park it over here. It doesn't meet our needs, so we're not going to finish it. And then, but you have all the other boxes which are like polished to that mirror finish and they're perfect. So it tells you that they were working down here. It also tells you that functionality was important enough that when this crack developed, they likely just shelved it.
Yeah. Maybe they were like, well, we'll use that for the little doorway things in the alcove. You know what I mean? They could have taken pieces of this. But
yeah.
So what I wanted to ask you about, where I asked you to pause it, was this inset lip on the inside.
Yep.
Do the lids have a part that
this one?
Let's see, you're almost there.
I don't know. It's hard to. It does look like it. If I zoom right in, let's try that. Move it over here.
So what I'm asking is on the on the underside of the lid, does it have a little part that juts down that would fit into that?
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that channel that's cut into the. I'm trying to describe this for people listening too. There's like a 2-inch channel cut into the inner lip of the box. Like you would imagine a lid would have a piece that went down so that when the lid was perfectly centered over it, it would fall down in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just maybe I don't know because we didn't look. We when I was here, I've only seen this once. It almost looks like it's there on the corner here, and that may be the reason why the box is. If you go back, the box is sort of sitting up a little bit.
Yeah,
like the lid is sitting up a little bit. I don't know if there's stones under there so much as maybe it's sitting on because it's also
maybe it's sitting on that
center.
lip.
Maybe it's resting on that inset.
Well, what would happen? Yeah, because it is off to the side too.
So the other interesting thing that I'm noticing about this, because you pointed out the cracks and they've stuck it off in this corner. They never moved it all the way to the alcove, and they didn't finish the fine polishing work on it, and yet the lid is on it.
Yes,
and I also see around the edges there earlier when you were looking at the edges of the box, it looks like the same kind of pry bar damage. Like, in other words, when they put the box down, the lid was fully on it, and somebody later came along and pried that lid back at least a little bit. Because I can't imagine you'd be moving it like that with the lid offset. That would be a pain in the ass, right? So you'd want the lid, if you're going to move it with the lid on it, you want it all the way on there so that it's not unbalanced.
Yeah, good point. I don't know. I don't even know how you would pry that off there with it.
I know. I completely agree.
Apparently someone did, like something happened. I mean, the other option, maybe they just pop the lid on it if you had the ability to lift the lid up and throw it where you want it. I mean, it seems odd that it's open like that.
Yeah.
So the other thing, in Yusuf saying that the one surface that is pretty smooth is the underside of the lid. So maybe I don't know when they down tools, but there is this underside of the lid is smoother than the rest of the box. But this strikes me as not finished. I mean,
I agree.
And then it just,
it's not finished and it's not in place.
Right.
And it's just interesting to me that it's like were they moving the box with the lid on it? Or like you said, it was easy for them. So they were moving the box and then they were like, well, this whole thing's broken. Just stick the lid on top of it and we'll leave it there. Yeah. Okay.
That lid is monstrous. I mean, it's like 2 feet thick almost or something. 18 inches thick.
That's more. You mean height-wise? It's probably 3 feet.
Oh, my God.
Box, it's 11 feet tall total. Like Yusuf's standing up on stuff. Like you stand up on rocks around the side to get this view of the inside here.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, I'm full stretch around here. There's a bunch of rocks that Yusuf was standing on too.
We doubt that this is coming from Aswan, by the way.
This is a Sinai stone,
This
you think?
looks like more like, navigation channel.
Navigation challenge is what he called it.
Yeah. It's in the corner. How'd they freaking get it
Piece
there?
of the lid is definitely smoother.
Okay, so he's pointing out that smoothest on the bottom.
Imagine handling massive pieces like this in a very narrow places like that.
Yeah.
So if you want a sense of the height of it, like where we roll up on it here.
Yeah, when you walk up to it.
Yeah, it's there you go. So it's I mean, you're like 3 feet high. It's like probably 6.5, 7 feet tall, maybe even tall. Like Yusuf, we're about 6 feet. So
Yeah, 7.5.
That's crazy.
7.5, and
7.5 feet and another 3 feet of the box.
Even higher.
Yeah,
and you can
4
see
feet.
it's also boxed out here at the end, like it's a narrower.
Yeah.
See that?
Or is that just a shadow somehow? I don't know.
No, I think the front of the lid is a square section, has a
wider.
lip on it. And then it
Okay.
And you do see that on a couple of the others. See that? It's like it's
Yeah. So the
Yeah,
interface of the lid is bigger than the body of the lid.
yeah.
There's no way they took it around that corner. It must have come from down that other hallway, right? I mean, how could they have gotten it around that corner?
There's nothing, as far as we know, there's nothing behind it.
Oh.
This is the end of the tunnel. This is in the corner.
What?
Unless they found some other discovery, unless they knocked the wall in to figure out, all right, this was a passageway. But no, this is bedrock. They parked it in a corner. Like,
Yeah, but how did they get it around? Okay. I have to
so
stop asking that question.
here's the look at it here. That's right. That's the same question, man.
It's like the largest one.
Like that's the end of the tunnel, and then it's just an alcove. There's nothing behind it.
There's nothing back there. Okay.
No. It's just an alcove.
Yeah, so it would be interesting to work out the geometry of that get all the measurements of the interior space,
Find out
and the
if you can
measurements of the
actually
box,
take
and
it around
model it to where you could see like what is the tolerance to get this thing around this corner. That would be interesting.
Yeah. Well, as I said, so that big rose granite box that we saw first off with the writing on it, there's about a foot of clearance between the width of that box and the width of the tunnel that it had to come in through to get in there. So I in one of my videos I have like that Friends scene where they're trying to pivot, like carry it out the stairs. I mean, you have to literally go around corners with these things. And then as we get into the main gallery, not only that, you've got to manage like put them down in these alcoves where it's like 6 feet. It's a 6 foot drop. And they've put them in the center of these alcoves. They haven't just like thrown them in there. They've lowered them into the center of these alcoves.
Yeah, each alcove has an inset pit.
Yeah,
the box
like 6
fits
feet
down it. Yeah, the box fits down it. So not only you have to slide it in there, but then you've got to very carefully lower it so that it doesn't break. Right? Because it would break if you just dropped it down in there.
I mean, this is what it makes me think of.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Okay, all right. Easy.
All right.
Easy. Wait. Stop.
What?
No. Twist it.
I am.
No. Other way. You twisted
Which
it the
way?
wrong way. Okay. No. All right. You know what? All right. Just put it down. Put it down. Just drop it.
All right.
Drop it.
That's what it's like.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So that's that off limit. That's the closed section. Hopefully they open it to the public at some point. They're obviously renovating it, but now we're back into the main gallery and starting to look at like the other boxes. And again, this is what I'm talking about. Like we're looking down on the roof of this thing. That thing's probably just as tall as that box. It's 6-7 feet down. And then we've added our own touch of renovations with the steel girders around the alcoves.
Yeah.
And it's tough to see, but there is an inset cavity on the sides of this, on the sides of these alcoves that housed the false doors.
Okay. So now the lid of this box has two inset, what look like lifting
spaces.
Yeah, spaces instead of, whereas the other one had like a
big
middle
nub.
piece that jutted out at the end.
That's right. Yeah, it's as if you put something in there. It's a little different. The other thing that's different about this is they pushed the lid off from the back. It's not all the rest of them are opened pushing forward, but they've pushed this one from the back. But this is not as well. This isn't quite polished either. It's close. It seems to be finished in location, but not quite mirror polished. But the lines on it are magic. Like the faceting of the box is magic.
God, look at that. Yeah, it is beautiful.
And then I see like occasionally when the light hits it perfectly, I see these little pock marks on the lid there.
On the side of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know what that is. And there's actually an unfinished section on that lid there. I don't know. It could be tool marks. It could be.
Yeah. Well, they're very regular looking too, like they're patterned.
Well,
yeah.
So we do know that there were chisels used on these boxes. Like the box in the hallway and the box in the lid, you have chiseled. Like it's probably iron chisels. There were chiseling marks definitely made on them.
Yeah.
But you also have machining marks. So you have very fine machining marks in the finished boxes. I have not seen any saw cuts on this stone. Like I like to see it at Abu Sir in those places. Not to say that wasn't possibly a technique that was used, but you definitely have like machining marks from the polishing, and then there's definitely chisel marks on them as well. Well, other than that, I think one of the marks got polished out.
Yeah. How would they cut that lid off that box without a saw?
You have to saw it.
Yeah.
There's no way. Yeah. It's then just been worked. I think all the cut surfaces worked.
Yeah. They're polished out.
And again, this is some of the part I like to laugh about, which is, you show them, like there's some demonstrations of guys using a 3 or a 4 foot copper bar and they're rubbing sand on it, back and forth and slowly working together. I mean, you're talking about lengths where you'd have to have a 25 foot or 20 foot bar and make the lengthways cuts on these boxes.
Yeah.
To then, after you pull it out of the quarry, because your lump of stone that you're pulling out the quarry is probably 150 plus tons.
Right.
You start to get. I mean, there's everywhere you turn there.
And the other interesting thing is that there is evidence that they worked the boxes down in the tunnels, and the boxes only fit in the tunnels long ways. And when they're in the tunnels long ways, you don't have a whole lot of clearance on either side. So if you're trying to cut anything in that direction, you're like slamming into the walls in both directions with your saw. Unless it's like, unless it's a power saw, basically.
Yeah, and there's really no room there's very little room in the alcoves to work them either, even without the steel girders that we put in. It's just assuming they dropped them into the alcoves and then worked on them. There's still very little room.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting box. This is Mariette's box.
This is the one he blew up.
The one he blew up. In fact, let me, before we jump into that, we'll come back to that. I just want to show you, just for scale too. This is a video that was taken on the trip.
Okay.
Of my ass getting on one of the boxes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that too. Like, is it typically frowned upon to get on them and inside them and everything? Because
so this is the realm of who you're with and how it works and the backsheesh and it's not. I'm not hurting it. There's plenty of footprints on it. You can, it depends on how generous they're feeling, and it's, everything in Egypt's more or less available for a price, so it's a matter of, getting, if you can arrange it, you can do it. It's not destructive. We're not hurting it. It's a massive chunk of granite.
Of course.
It's,
so that gives you the scale. Yeah. It's huge. And that one is polished. I can see. Yeah.
That one is polished, yep. And I have the footage looking down from on top. There you go. So,
God, man,
you can see the back of it. Yeah, you can actually. I have the footage looking straight down into it.
Yeah, so you jumped on the box from the hallway, and then you walked all the way to the end, and that just gives you the scale. It's amazing. Yeah. And then it looks like they were scooping damaged parts of the stone out of that one, but then they polished the scoops. That's what it looks like.
They did. Well, that's whoops. Yeah, that's right. They did polish the scoops. So that's an interesting part of it. And in fact, once we get to the polished boxes where you can really see that's evident, it also puts to rest because the orthodox theory about, well, how did they polish the stone? Well, they got sand and they got rocks and they got water and they rubbed it and they rubbed it and they rubbed it. And it's just, but they use like a flat piece of stone to polish a flat surface. You can't polish like a convex, egg-shaped surface like that with that method. It's not, you can't do it. It's, how did they polish those stones? We don't know, but there's some really interesting evidence for maybe a way that they polished the stone that is coming up towards the end of this video when we get to the box with the writing on it. There's
all right.
Some interesting ideas. It's possible that they used a liquid. I think there's solid evidence that there was some form of liquid used to polish the stone. Like, call it what you want. I don't believe we do this today. Alchemy. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it looks like there's looks to me like evidence of where the liquid has run off the side of a lid of one of these boxes and pooled underneath on the underside of the lid. Now, because when we look at those boxes, there's a technical difference between the surfaces. There's the polished stuff, and then there's the flat and smooth but not mirror polished side, right? That's the undersides of the lids. And the tops of the boxes. They don't do the full polished job on those. They do the full polished job on the insides, the walls, and on the outsides of the lid and the outside of the box. But so on the underside of this lid, you've got these little drip marks, man, where there's liquids come down. It's clearly pooled and dripped down. And where that liquid mark from looks to me like a water or something like that would have run, that's all perfectly polished and smooth, just like the other parts of the box.
So they had they may have some kind of liquid that you just apply it and it polishes the stone.
Seems to be
okay.
And there's some evidence for that. Now I can't explain it.
Right, of course.
Or I don't know if we do anything like that, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
It'd be definitely interesting to get a sample of that to be, tested in a lab just to see what it's made of.
Yeah. So that box will come. I'll just quickly skip to this recent trip because Mariette's box is interesting. That was the box we were looking at. There was one box. The one box that was found closed. So there was one box still sealed up when Auguste Mariette found it in, I think, the 1850s. I probably keep getting that wrong.
And he had to blow it up. Yeah, he had to see.
He blew it open with dynamite, right?
Yeah.
And then there's me and George Howard scanning a box. That's actually pretty funny. And on this last trip, I went over and I got into it, which may be here. No, let's use it. It's one of these videos here. Sorry.
No problem.
We will find it. That's that box. I feel like
So while you're looking for it, I'll just say it's interesting how the rest of these, the lids are shifted. You know, somebody came along and opened the boxes. And then,
yes, someone definitely did.
And then in the 1800s, somebody came along, supposedly somebody who was much more advanced, and decided to blow the box up because opening it that way was too hard.
Yes.
Sliding the lid was too hard, so use dynamite.
This is looking down on this. That same footage from when I was on the box. So looking down on the inside of the back of it.
Yeah, you can definitely see the mirror finish on that inside there.
Yeah.
It's all shiny. God,
and perfect.
Beautiful.
It's the corners of magic, right?
Yes.
It's just,
I find it interesting too that there's so many different designs. Like it's as though, like, you know, you came up with this job. It's like, we need all these boxes, and there were like all these different contractors. Like, I can get you 3, you know, and somebody else, we'll build 10 of them, and so they have these different methods for building the boxes, because you got the two little indentations on the lid for picking it up, and then the other people have the knob that juts out, and I mean, it's just that's
a great point.
They're beveled. Some of them are beveled. Other ones are square and have the bigger faces at the ends. It's just like the different design. Hey man, my box is superior to your box.
Yeah, so it's
but they serve the same purpose, right? They all have this general purpose, but they're just different designs.
Different manufacturers making their own boxes. Yeah.
They all have a very regular and perfect interior space. Maybe that's the important, right? I think it's. I tend to think, and I've not seen it done, and I'd love to see it done. Is to have a comparison of the size of the inside spaces, because all the boxes are slightly different sizes and shapes, like you say, different types of stone. But I'd like to see a measurement of the inside cavities. Are all the inside cavities the same?
Yeah. Now, there was one that you said was small and was circular. There was a circular interior too, it looked like, from the video. Yeah. So that would be definitely not the same size.
Right. I think that is a possibility that was either moved in or being moved out. It's definitely, that's a very, there's a couple boxes that kind of stand alone. There's that one. And then there's the limestone box, I think, that's next to it. That's really rough. And I think that, you know, there may have been more boxes that have been moved, but that's definitely a waste. That's a very small box made from granite. It's possible the dynastics did that. I don't know that it's much it rules out. Certainly late period, they had iron tools. They could do some pretty good stuff. And it's, you know, it's not something that's horrendously heavy. It's probably still 10, 15 tons, but probably, you know, manageable 70.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is Marriott's box.
This was perfect, and it was blown open.
And you can kind of get a see the mirror finish on the inside. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so you're showing the corners.
Inside corners.
Yeah.
And the beautiful granite, you know.
It's amazing.
You hear that resonance, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely resonated there.
What was that? So this is Marriott's box that was blown open. This was found sealed. Yeah, come on in.
A really quick and easy way to test the interior space is to get into every one and hum until you find that resonant frequency. Because if they're all the same size, they'll all be the same. It'll all have the same fundamental.
The same resonance?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get into all of them. I mean, there's some of the spaces aren't big enough.
Well, you can just hum into it, though. You should be able to hear it.
Hum into it. You could lean over it, and probably hum into it. Right.
So the rubble that's in the bottom of that, is that material from the box?
Yeah, from the box. Yeah,
okay.
They threw it all in.
Huh.
Why?
But yeah, interesting box. So nothing in it. You know, when he dynamited, it was empty. There was no balls found in the Serapeum. So one of the passageways you see before we walked into what's known as the great galleries, the greater galleries, there's another set of tunnels that don't connect to these, anything we're seeing here, they don't connect to the Serapeum, but they're known as the lesser galleries. And there's much smaller, much cruder tunnels. And in those, they found a bunch of apis bulls that were mummified in wooden crates. And from that, they just sort of smear it across the Serapeum and say, well, this was clearly, these were boxes for bulls too. Which, it's very clear. Really no more. And yeah, looking at here is the floor tiling, so you can see the box is further inset into the floor. I think it's possible. My intuition here is that the dynastic Egyptians likely added the floor tiles afterwards, like they came in and actually tiled around the box.
Do we know actually how far the box goes down into it? Even is it possible that it goes beyond the floor tiles?
No, I think you could probably see it at the front there. I imagine those floor tiles are like the other ones we saw where you're talking about maybe a foot. Maybe it's a little more than a foot thick, these tiles in the ground. I suspect the box just sits on the ground there. And there's a tile missing at the front there. I mean, I don't know. That's what I think it is. I think it's just sitting on the bedrock, and those floor tiles are about the same as all the other floor tiles we've seen.
Okay, so they weren't digging holes to put the boxes in then?
The original builders,
which is why I don't know about that other chamber we saw before. That might be an anomaly, but
okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they were just putting the boxes down and then building the floor around them.
So if we were to remove the modern floor and the ancient tiled floor and go back to just the bare, the original flooring of the entire Serapeum, how far down do those alcoves drop? Do you have any?
No, well, I think it's just I think the box is sitting on that bedrock, and there's about a foot of floor tile been built around it.
And then up to the hallway, how far? Because you were showing you're standing up by the lid, so it's how deep is that drop?
Right. So the hallway's only the modern floor. There's glass tiles in the floor, so you can look down and see the original floor, and it's only like half a foot. I mean, they've built basically a raised walkway. It's probably the width of a 2x4 or 2x6 or something like that. Whatever they used to build the floor. And it's a good thing they did, because it was sand and dirt, and by all accounts, when people would go in here before they put the floor in, you'd be choking in dust. It's just the dust thick. So this wooden flooring is quite a blessing. And in fact, this is a good example of how straight and really astonishing the tunnel system is.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Between that alcove and now what I consider the main part of the Serapeum, we're just getting to, with most of the impressive boxes, it's a longer passageway with no alcoves, but it's this dead straight. I mean, it's also 300-400 feet long. Like, it's a massive underground complex. It's like a giant wine cave or something.
Wine caves.
So, accomplishing this kind of work, how come the writings is so crude? So, if we cannot depend on these writings to date and relate, then we are missing something.
Yeah, well, we need to start again.
Like here. This one is not aligned with this one.
And this one also has some of the dips, the bubbles.
That's my buddy Luke who's talking.
Well, first of all, parts.
Well, before we dive into this box, you want to take another break real quick?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Take another break. Be right back.
All right. With Ben, UnchartedX, Brothers of the Serpent, Swapcast extravaganza, looking at the Serapeum, and now what did you say? This is the part with the most impressive boxes.
Yeah, this is all the really. I mean, they're all impressive up to this point, but this is mostly the finished granite boxes that are really shiny and polished, and also has the one that has all of the writing on it.
Oh yeah.
Piece of rock or with whatever you have, you will never reach that level of polishing as same as the flat surface.
Actually, so he's talking about we talked about the polishing. Let me just back
aligned with this one.
And this one also has some of the dips, the bubbles.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we looked at these deeper parts And as a stone carver, I was like saying, like, this is impossible. Why? Because I saw that inside these lower parts, the polishing still in these deeper ones as good as the one on the surface. And if you follow that manual style, of course, you will never be able to go to these pits in the stone. You will never reach with your sandpaper or with your piece of rock or with whatever you have. You will never reach that level of polishing as same as the flat surface on the outside. So we had many like ideas looking around it and thinking like maybe this is a kind of bacteria that affected the stone, things like that. Until one day, and there is no coincidence, but when it was the time for us to see and realize, like these ones especially, yeah. You see these ones?
It's like a circle, semicircle.
Yeah, and it's polished on the inside, same like anything else.
Inside the tip, right?
Yeah.
And I know
A huge one on the side.
underneath the lid of this last box, you can see that.
Yeah. So that's that point we made earlier about the fact that you have this perfect polishing also in the divots, of which there are many in these boxes.
Yeah.
They've definitely emptied out a lot of cracks here, and they've also faceted the sides.
Yep. Did they do this all around the exterior of the box part too? Because I see them in the lid.
Yep. Yeah. They're all around the box. Yep. They're lid, body, wherever they found cracks.
God, look at the cuts on that one. They're just so sharp. Wow.
Yeah, this is a nice box too because this has a vein of material in it. This is something that I made a point of pointing out in my last video about when I commented about geopolymers, and this is probably one of the reasons why it's not a geopolymer is that
yes,
I mean, this is a vein of rock that came out the ground, and there's a bunch of objects that have these veins of material on them.
So what is is that granite with a vein of quartz in it, or?
It's granite. Yeah, I'm not sure what the vein is. I'm not no expert.
Feldspar.
Yes, I mean some material.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah,
and
so
they're all again. These aren't rows, huh?
You guys are continuing down the hallway and left, right. We're looking into the alcoves and showing the boxes, and these are very similar in styles. But yeah, they've got these scoop marks, like somebody took an ice cream scoop to the lids and to the boxes, but that is also polished to a high shine.
Yeah, they're mirror finish.
Yeah,
and they're just covered in dust,
right?
Which is not a natural property for granite.
Yeah,
to be shiny like that, it takes quite a lot of work. And again, not rose granite. So most of these are all black granite or syenite or granodiorite or something that have come from
lower slab,
further away.
Yeah. And some of these lids have been shifted forward, like you were pointing out.
Yep, they're all open. And again, you see the alcove in the side? This is where the granite stele with the false door shape would have been.
Okay.
In the side of that alcove. And again, here's another. There's no floor tiles left in here, so you can get a sense of the depth of the box. It's sitting on bedrock. I think this is what most of the chambers look like. A lot of the limestone, I think, it was probably just quarried. I mean, along with everything else. All these granite steles were quarried. The boxes were probably too big to quarry. They just left them alone.
So what I don't understand then is when is this quarrying taking place? If you have one period where according to your idea that the ancient Egyptians found this place and found these boxes in here, and then they revered it. So they brought all these tiles in, they tiled it, they're trying to preserve it, they're renovating it, they're putting their own floors and walls in there. And then at some later date, other people find that, and then they take the blocks out to build other stuff.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what happened in the last couple of thousand years, like 3,000 years.
Okay.
I mean, even go further back, a lot of these sites have been quarried continuously for that period. Even sites like this, I mean, there was clearly people got in here. It had occupation for a long time. It was probably then quarried and then lost, and then rediscovered eventually. We have records of it being used after or during the end of the Egyptian civilization. There's a long period, and then anything on the surface certainly, but this sort of stuff as well. It's all, it's just later civilizations come and take the stone. They don't seem to care much about it, and that's been going on right up until really 100 years ago. These sites have been quarries, for.
I'd say that.
Yeah, I mean, even
fragments of these boxes, like for example, the one that was blown up by what's his name, Marriott. Yeah, that would be a good candidate for luminescence dating. They've been in the dark this whole time. And it'd be interesting. And they had to have been moved through the sunlight from wherever they were quarried to get here. So the last time they were exposed to sunlight was right before they came down in these tunnels. So it'd be interesting to get some luminescence dating and find out how long they've been in the dark.
Well, is it also, I mean, would that still apply if they'd been worked when they were down here? Because a rough lock and then it was worked. This is one of my favorite boxes, actually.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Just beautiful shapes. And then it's also that when the camera pans to the side and you just get this reflection on the side of the box, it's so like a mirror and just smooth. Like you can see how smooth those
yes.
And the scoops are, these scoop marks.
Yeah, it looks like they took some pretty big scoops out of the bevel of that side there. Yeah.
Yep, big chunk out the side. What seemed to be, and you just don't see these on the inside of the boxes. The insides are always perfect.
That's interesting.
So whatever was, it seemed to me that the important part was likely the inside of the box that had.
Yeah.
And it's just straight and flat and square.
Remind me, when we go to this place, to bring a huge bottle of Windex and some paper towels.
We could definitely take some time with paper towels to clean this place up. It's,
yeah.
oh, that's loud, Jesus.
So another question is going back to the intent of the original builders, whoever they were.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like they ever intended for these boxes to come back out. I mean, right? They were put in here, and it was this is a permanent setup.
Yeah.
I
think so.
Yeah, once those boxes are down in those alcoves, I mean, how are you going to lift it back out of there? I mean, I guess you could do it if you had some kind of magical technology.
Maybe, yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing too. Like these boxes don't have the bosses or the nubs on them.
Yeah.
Which I just had a thought. It's like, okay, so the unfinished boxes do.
Yeah.
And some of them have the insets, but the one in the unfinished, so maybe they pop the lid on them and then they polish them off and they're like, all right, they're closed. They're sealed.
It's permanent.
We're not actually going to get the lid off it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they didn't even ever plan to take the lids off, which is strange too. But the boxes with the inset lifting
lid.
I don't know what they're called, lifting alcoves, lifting.
Yeah, like the square holes in the lid that looks like you could, you'd shove something in there to lift it. Right?
Yeah, and you can see that in one of them, at least that you showed a while back, it looked like whoever actually opened the box tried to use that with a pry bar of some type because it was all shattered.
Yeah,
around those eyes. So it's weird that they would have some of them have them, some of them don't have them, some of them have different ways of. It's just, it's so strange.
It's infuriatingly mysterious.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, and you see the floor. These are a lot of the limestone tiles that the dynastics likely added. They plastered the ceiling. They didn't, they put their limestone over everything, and that's all since been falling down. So we get to, we have several more of these boxes. We'll skip it forward here. And then we get to the box with the writing on it. And this is the one they let you go down to see because it's supposedly the most valuable.
And so this is very near the end. It looks like the end of the passage, the hallway there.
Yes, and then there's this little hole in the wall that stretches off into the distance at the end of the passageway here that we talked about. But yeah, so this is towards the end. And the other thing about these alcoves is none of them face each other. They're all offset. So there's two alcoves like face to face. They're all offset.
Yeah, when you look at an overhead diagram of the tunnel system, it looks like a skeleton key or something.
Something like that, right? Yeah. The fact that they're all offset sort of triggers something in my head too.
Yes.
Like it's a functional thing. I don't know. It's like you just can't have them lined up with each other. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's accidental, but so this is the box they let you down into. It's a giant, magically flat, perfect granite box that has got these chicken scratch writings made into it. I'm sure useful.
We can see how crude these lines are.
Too bright, no reflection. No, yours is good, Yusuf.
Okay.
Ben's super bright.
We can see the glyphs itself is very, very crude. The tool is hardly scratched the surface of the stone. somebody can do these edges, these lines,
Yeah, they're not straight. Look at,
and then
they're not parallel.
Yeah, look at this. The tool is totally like soft, and even this here, if this, we believe these writings here is from the late period or Greco-Roman time as well. The writing on the
Is that
surface.
the style of the writing?
The style of the writing, yes. And
Empty cartouche.
supposedly at this time there was more iron.
Yeah, of course. Right?
You know what I mean?
Well, this is probably iron, and this is what iron looks like when you scrape, or what granite looks like when you scrape it with iron.
Yeah. Here we can find an empty shell,
Yeah.
and then there's still this part of the story. That this work was being done by the priest in order to trade it.
Right.
And then where does Egyptologist come in this? Usually, if we find the name here, for
That's who built
example,
it.
imagine the name Ptolemaeus is going to be added here later. Imagine these writings are written, and then later the name Ptolemaeus
Yes.
will come here. We will depend on this name to say that this box was made during the time of Ptolemaeus, and he ordered the priest to manufacture it specially to give offering for the Apis bull, and there goes the whole story.
Who is he saying? What name?
Ptolemy.
Okay. All right.
Ptolemy,
Ptolemy. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ptolemies.
Yeah.
Ptolemaeus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the point. Like, there's the fact that there's an empty shen or empty cartouche there is very interesting because, again, it just hints that they're selling it. Here's a great example of a divot in the box that's been polished. Like, it's not a smooth scoop out, but they've scooped out a crack. But look how beautifully every little complex curve and surface in this divot is polished. The light's just reflecting off it like a mirror.
Yeah.
And it's that idea of you rubbing this with sand and rocks. It's like, good luck.
Right.
And then, so this is the other thing. On the underside of the lid, you can now, this is where you can see some of the very fine machining marks. I don't know how they're going to show up for you guys. On the
Yeah.
video.
We see some lines. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's actually some horizontal lines looking across it. Like he's following him with his finger there.
Yep, I
Yeah.
can see him.
There's very fine machining marks. Because again, remember the underside of the lid hasn't been polished to a mirror. You're seeing a reflection because it's very flat. It's been ground flat, but it's not polished like the rest of the box.
And the top of the rim is also not polished? Of the box
the top
itself?
of the lid, you mean?
The top of the rim of the box.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the top, like the mating surfaces aren't mirrored polished. That's right. They're ground flat. They're really very flat. In fact, it's very much like the box at Lahoon that I just did a video on. Not polished, but ground really flat, and it still reflects light because of the, I guess, binding.
So it's still a precision flat surface. It's just not polished. That was
So when you run your hand on it, can you feel those tool marks with your fingers?
So not
really.
You can
Just
feel it's not polished, but there's some very fine marks there. I couldn't really feel much, but where there's a difference, you can definitely feel the difference between the polished surface and the flat surface, the underside of the lid, and that becomes important because this is in this sort of cocked off part of the lid here is where there's this evidence of what looks like a liquid that's come down the side and eddied underneath it, and it seems, and wherever it's eddied underneath it, you touch it, it's that same smooth polished surface that's on the rest of the box, and you can just run your hand down. It's like very, very obvious when you touch it. You can also, it's pretty obvious when you see it to me as well.
See. So this is the smooth surface of granite, but not shiny. This is shiny. This is not shiny. But between them here, this is where we found the truth.
Where we found the truth.
Some kind of liquid.
You see it really
So
clearly.
the
there.
liquid
Oh yeah, I see it.
leaks down here and then forms these lines with drops.
Yeah, so he's trailing down the side of the lid and then to
Same
the
like how
underside.
you read that somebody.
Just go ahead.
Well, I was just saying he's what he's talking about is the liquid draining down the side of the lid and then pooling up on the underside of the unpolished surface of the lid.
At the corner there and leaving a trace of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's as if a liquid sort of pooled up and then dripped, and you can see it really clearly here, along here, and all along the edge of it where it sort of came underneath, and then just touching it. That's where you can see it and you can feel it, and it's not a varnish, it's not like, in fact, where you see this is another thing where you see the boxes are chipped. And if you look up, I've tried to get some photos of it. I'm sure I have them somewhere, but just let me describe it. It almost looks like there's a millimeter or two of the end of the stone is almost like that polish is penetrated. It's like this, it's like a harder casing. It's like this. It's not just surface. It's where it's chipped off. You can kind of see that there's a discoloration of a millimeter or two on the edge of that surface. It's not.
So it's penetrated like a stain wood on wood, like when you
almost.
Yeah.
That's maybe the description for it. But anyone that goes and sees these, go look when you find these polished surfaces like this. Look on where it's been cracked or something. Try and look, and you'll see that there's a depth to it.
Okay.
Was walking on top of it because obviously no doubt about that. And these where that liquid ran exactly the same shiny surface like that. And it gave it all the explanations we need. And it also explained how the polishing reached all these deeper levels. So where is the theory now of polishing with the sand under the water under the rock? It's only on the scene on the wall, but not on the real artifact. Which one I'm going to believe? Of course, the real artifact is the one that tells you the absolute truth.
So whether or not it was, some kind of magic liquid, that the fact that there are those run lines proves that it's not sand and somebody rubbing on it with sand, because you could not get that effect.
I think so, right? And I think that you would be challenged to get that the polished effect. Just try and test it in one of those divots, or try and test it in a surface that's not flat and see how far you get. This is the realm of the experimentalists. This is the Chris Dunn test. It's why everybody that comes out and look, I'm grinding a stone pot, or I'm doing, I'm testing these. I'm showing you that it can be done because I've dug a trilinear corner in a piece of granite with hand tools. It's the 4-step. You have to encompass and demonstrate that you can achieve the most difficult aspects of these challenges as well. That's how you prove it. You have to include the most difficult aspects.
Exactly.
It's like. And that in some cases that may include some of the geometry of the overall object. There's a lot to it. And by the way, I just wanted to back that up, because one of my most favorite parts of this is as we turn this corner, you just look at the reflection, the beautiful reflection on the stone, and how mirror-like it really is as you just go around the corner there.
Oh yeah,
it's just such a fine piece of work, and it I just think it's been defaced. So yeah, I think a lot of these things could be determined. I think more experiments and more testing. I'm not the guy to do that sort of stuff. I don't have the equipment, the know-how, the space to do it, I guess, even.
Yeah.
I know there are people trying, and I think it's all good, a good thing to do. But I think the Chris Dunn test in his book, where he lays out the 4 conditions you got to satisfy to sort of say, okay, we know how it was done.
Yeah.
I think that's the test. I really do.
Right. Match the most difficult parts, not just the easy parts.
Using the methods you say that were done, you need to then also replicate the most difficult elements of the problem and then carefully compare it with the original results. And you also have to take into account all aspects of the original artifact. You can't ignore parts of it. You've got to you've got to just take account of all of it. And then so here on the back of the box, you see the false door that's been drawn on it.
Yes.
Right. Mimicking
those granite.
Other.
Yeah.
Right.
I also want to point out what we were talking about earlier is that the alcoves are all offset from each other, right? You were commenting on that. That also makes it much more difficult to turn these things into the alcoves when you're moving them in. If the alcoves were adjacent to each other, it would be a lot easier to get it in there, because you'd have now an open space on the other side where you could move the back end of the box to angle it in there.
All right, so I have an idea on why the alcoves are offset.
All right.
It's just an idea, but the machine that cuts the alcove sits against the back wall, right?
Okay.
And then it cuts that alcove, and then you spin it around and set it against this wall, and you cut that alcove, and it can't, I don't know. That might be an idea.
No, it's a good idea. I would say there are some alcoves that face tunnels that entryways that go away. So there are some that don't have a blank, just a wall against them.
Okay.
But
throw that idea out.
Well, they use the tunnel machine for those. See, there's
Maybe-
a tunnel
maybe-
machine and an alcove machine. The alcove machine needs a wall, and then later they come and do the tunnel machine to get the tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at
I
that.
think
That is a huge divot.
there's some interesting stuff there.
See that down there? That's the rough
The
machine.
the rough machine. So we do have rough machining, and it's still lost to technology.
It's highly abrasive. Like that looks like it's taking just chunks out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot. This is some other machining that just looks like it's hammered out in rows here for whatever reason. Who knows?
Yeah, and this is the bottom
rough cut. Yeah.
bottom corner.
Bottom
of the
left
box.
of the back of the box, I guess. Yeah.
So, what you think that's original? You don't think that's later work?
I'm not sure. Yusuf seems to think that it's an example of some tool that's just abrasively shaped the rock. Maybe he's right. I'm not sure. To me, I from this, it's like it could be done with a hand chisel, like an iron chisel eventually. But even that's like a lot of work. I mean, I'm sure you could, but it seems to have these regular lines in it.
Yes, but it looks like the writing and the crude chiseling continued into that area that's been busted out.
Or they just couldn't finish that corner.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, I didn't finish the corner. Yeah, I'll have to have a closer look at it next time I'm there to see how far this writing actually goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know if you can tell which one came first, really.
Yeah, I would point out though that the regular lines in that really rough cut area are not much different than the regular lines in the rough chiseled writing. You know, they're not.
Well, other than being a lot deeper and more
Other than
effective.
being much deeper, yeah.
Like this is like, I mean, I don't know, it's weird. They supposedly had on, like, again, this is the best. I sort of got to qualify this a little bit because it's the best example of the difference between the writing, the technology involved in the writing, and the technology involved in the object itself.
Right.
That said, the dynastic Egyptians were absolutely capable of some amazing work and amazing writing, and they did that in a lot of places. And in a lot of boxes, it's a much higher quality writing. Now, it's possible that this was. I don't think this is the case, but it's possible this was like the first step before they carved it. But I don't think it is because there's so many areas where the lines are literally wavy. Now, you see it on a lot of other objects. They used straight lines and rulers, and they gridded out stuff. So they sort of paint by numbers kind of deal. We see that on objects in the museum, so they were capable of doing straight, clean, precise work. And then with the chisels, and they were able to make really sharp-looking hieroglyphs, particularly in the later period when they had access to iron. This is some sort of amateurish thing that happened to it. It's because I don't think it's the first stage, but I do think that they were certainly capable of doing better work. And you see more examples of better work, but even then, those examples are still, you look closely at them, they still are obviously done with hand tools and chisels. They were done with hand tools. There's just no, you don't, and Yusuf has looked at a lot of this stuff. He will tell you that he's never seen power tool marks on anything, on any writing. You see it on objects, on boxes, on slabs, and on statues, but you don't see it involved in the writing. So, I think that there's a good case to be made that all of the writing may have been done by the dynastic Egyptians. That's my point, is that even with the nice writing, you can see it's not polished. It's done with a hand tool, and it's usually on a well-made polished object in the case of these boxes. This is just the best example of it, where you highlight the technology gap, but it's
right.
It becomes more subtle, and you look at the much nicer glyphs that are on things like obelisks, for example. Like some of the obelisks, the hieroglyphs are incredible. I still think there's a difference between those glyphs themselves and the object.
So what do you think that means about the builder culture, that they didn't write on anything? Does that imply that?
I don't know. I don't. It seems, a lot of this stuff screams that it was functional to me, and the same as the pyramids, the Giza Plateau. Yet at the same time, you have the statues, which I think a lot of those came from that culture as well, particularly the giant ones, the perfect ones. So there was definitely there was a culture there involved in it as well. There was, that's you can't say that's a functional statue. It's obviously it's representative of something.
Yeah.
It's cultural.
So, I don't know. I might be wrong. There's a possibility that the Egyptians took some of that writing from back then, but I'm not convinced of it. I think it's a good case that almost all of the writing was done by the dynastic Egyptians.
Well, no, I agree because
there's a lot of objects. Maybe they were like us. I mean, we don't chisel a lot of stuff in stone.
That's right.
With other ways of recording our learnings and stuff, right?
Yeah. So I was just thinking, like, let's say you go down into a power plant or something that's like, all concreted in, it's full of concrete. We've got machines set in these little weird alcoves. There's all this equipment down in there, and then the writing is in the form of signs that are on the wall. But if you removed all the signs and all the machines, you would just have this strange, like, shaped boxy rooms with strange alcoves in them with no explanation and no writing. Basically, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's a great point. Maybe that's what we're looking at.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the fact that this is the only, there's only a couple of boxes in here with writing. We just don't see writing on a lot of these places yet. In the actual tombs that we know were tombs, we see no end of writing.
Right. It's filled.
It's filled. It's plastered. It's just all. This is a modern limestone work.
Yeah.
Our limestone work that'll probably fall apart long before the boxes.
Right.
Yeah. I think we've got one more feature to look at.
Okay.
And then how we doing on time?
We're good.
A little bit.
Yeah, we got time.
If there is our power plants probably have a manual. But if we were able to find the manual for the Serapeum, it'd be covered in the most dust because nobody reads those.
That's right. Yeah, who reads a manual?
Right. Just turn it on and see what happens.
Guilty of that today. Just where does this go? I'm just going to try every hole until I get it there. Yeah. So, right. And then there's this interesting feature that right at the end of the Serapeum, as we know of it, there is the end wall of the end of the 300 plus, feet of bedrock tunneling. There's a hole in the bottom right-hand corner. And you get down and you look right in there deep. It goes on. There's quite a distance. It's filled with rubble.
Oh man, we gotta climb in there.
Like what kind of extension? What is the function of it? Maybe they had the Apis rats. This is the tomb of the rats.
Apis rats.
It does go quite a ways.
Now, when you were looking in there, could you see an end to it, or did it seem to turn?
There's something going on at the end there, but it's. I would guess we could see probably 7 or 8, maybe 10 meters, so 30 feet, that direction. That was it. I couldn't really see, and it did seem to like terminate there, but there may have been something on the side. Yeah, I don't know. There's a
really strange, but
so there's accounts like in Marriott's book. I mean, and there was accounts of him finding other big boxes in chambers that were quote too dangerous to excavate, like. And we've never found those chambers again. There's actually accounts of like other boxes that we've never actually found.
Too dangerous to excavate. What does that mean?
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Like as if maybe just they were falling in, or it was anything. If they moved anything, it would have just caved in. So there may be more of these boxes just buried in the bedrock, just where it's all caved in around them, and they're just basically now buried in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially like thinking about the limestone. I don't know what you call them, casing or the lining blocks. They're pretty big. So if they were caving in or just like barely hold together, you would not want to go in there.
Yeah.
But, well, in fact, so when Marriott found it, of course, a lot of these alcoves were bricked up. They were actually the dynastics had bricked them up entirely, and then some of them have been torn down, and yeah.
Okay, so you guys are walking back up to the other side of this block that's in the hallway.
Yep, other side of the box in the hallway.
There's
just
barely any room.
That's right. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you can only fit one person beside it, and this isn't the biggest of boxes. But
right, one person on one side. The other side is almost all the way up against the wall.
Now, would the lid even fit on that to go in there?
Well, the lid's behind it, so they clearly brought the lid in afterwards.
But I guess the room is tall enough for the lid to sit on top.
Maybe.
In that room, maybe.
Maybe.
It's a pretty thick lid.
That's insane.
There's not a ton of room. Actually, I got my doubts about that lid fitting. It'd be very, very tight. You wouldn't be able to lift it very much.
It would be pretty tight.
Especially when you have to lift it up to move it.
Right. Yeah. You got to lift the whole thing up and making it extra hard.
Unbelievable. It's just...
And yeah, that's the other point. Some people say, well, did they make the ceiling? Did they drop the box? No, it's bedrock. It's tunnel. They had to bring them in through the tunnels. This is it's not a manufactured ceiling, which is the easier way to do it. You know, if you had to do this, you would
cut channels.
The easier way would be, you'd cut a hole in the ground and lower the box in and then make a ceiling.
Yeah.
Someone's brought these in horizontally through these tight tunnels.
Right. So again, if we go back to the form follows function, why were they doing it the hard way? And it seems like, well, because that's how it needed to be. So why would it need to be that way? Why would you need it to be a series of tunnels that you bring the boxes in rather than cutting holes in the ground to drop the boxes down into and then building a ceiling?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the difference, and why would you choose to do it this way when it's clearly a much harder job?
There must have been a reason.
Yes,
I think, right?
I agree.
That's what you get to. And this is the size of its lid. It's quite a stout lid. Yeah, you can't move it.
Yeah, I think he's trying to move it. Yeah, it's not working.
In the video, it's me trying to push on it. Yeah. I'm large.
You might have moved it a little bit.
I'm big, but I'm not that big.
So these are the alcoves in the walls that some of them have evidence of like candles being put in there.
Yeah.
A little bit of soot.
Yeah, it's a little bit of soot, and you just don't see it on the rest of the ceilings.
What is that? Is that writing?
A maze.
Like writing or something, yeah.
Master, and then you push the piece, it sticks and it stays. So everybody wants to honor hieroglyphics here as well and everything.
That's sort of haphazard, though. I mean, like the arrangement of those alcoves, those little notches in the wall, it's just random.
Yeah, I imagine it was sold on a per square inch basis or something.
That's because this was used, down into that Greek Roman period, maybe afterward as well. And again, the priesthood was probably in charge of this, and they sold space. Wow. Do what you want.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, and then back out into the daylight through the door. Yeah, and that's the trouble. They lock these doors. You got to pay to get in.
Right.
Man, it's
all right,
fantastic.
All this video we've watched, and I still don't understand anything.
Yeah, I've been there a few times, and I don't understand it. It's my favorite site. It's just a magnificent site, and it just bends your noodle a bit when you get to thinking about all the different parts of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, and I agree with the basic. So the basic premises that you've put forward about, the form follows function, that these boxes had a function, that even possibly the granite steles that were set in that had the false doors, those also had a function possibly, and the quality of the workmanship on those looks similar to the boxes. So we're thinking that the same people made those.
Maybe.
Yeah, and just the fact that they did it the hard way, dug tunnels into the bedrock, and then dragged the boxes in there and then finished them out all inside rather than digging a hole. Maybe that's why they did it that way.
Yeah.
I just realized, like, because about precision.
Precision is the key.
Yeah. So you want to finish the boxes out underground because that's the climate they're going to be in for the rest of the time. And if you polish them on the surface and then you put them down underground and close the ceiling over, the temperature changes and they will change shape slightly and they will no longer be precise.
Maybe.
So you do it the hard way because you need to drag it down into the tunnel to finish it out, to do all the flat cuts, right? I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It all comes back to precision to me. Like there's a relationship between precision and function, and you just don't need to, you don't need to chase the degree of precision that we see in these boxes that's measurable, that we can go and define.
Yeah.
For any other reason than function. if it's, if for art, for ceremonial stuff, you color within the lines, it's fine. And we see plenty of examples of that.
Yeah.
If it's a one-time box, it's a funeral box, whatever, you don't need to go to the lengths of developing the capability to create that type of precision unless you are chasing a functional benefit to it. And the same reason with the cracks and everything, to me, comes back to that. The fact that they went to all that trouble, it hints at a function. So therefore, my assumption is that these were functional originally. They may have been. Go ahead. Sorry.
Especially that the interior is the most precise aspect, the part that you will never see.
Yeah. Exactly.
They didn't mind putting random divots into the exterior where when you're doing something that's supposed to be aesthetically pleasing, like the exterior is the important part.
Right.
Whereas when you're engineering
great
something
point.
for a purpose, the internal structure is equally as important, right? If it's not going to be seen, it still has to be perfect.
Yeah, I mean that's right. The inside, the cylinder, the bores in an engine, or the rings and the silencers, and that's the important part. Like that's where the precision goes.
Right.
That's the working part of the machine. Yeah, that's a good point. That's right. And the outside, solidity seemed to be the really key aspect. So make it solid, no cracks, because why? Because maybe they're vibrating, maybe there's something going on. So yeah, who knows? And it's one of those things about perspective. It's really hard to frame it within our current perspective of technology, our understanding, which I think it's probably good to be able to think and just ponder the idea that maybe that solution lies outside of our perspective or outside of our current realm of understanding. It's like, who's to say we won't know more in 100 years about how to organic materials and things like stone, and who knows, right? We certainly don't know everything yet. And it's that the example is try and show an iPhone that's dead to someone from 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, and they wouldn't have a clue, wouldn't know how to frame what it is. But you and I, even though we can't build one, we could tell you what it is and what it's used for, because we have that frame of knowledge to say, well, this is what a wireless networking is, and a video screen and a touch screen and all the other components. We can place it into a perspective and a context, but maybe we just don't have the fundamentals to put these in their right context yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all, that's the way I think about it. I just think if we approach these problems like this with that mindset, instead of as Randall said, was it the cultural chauvinism of saying that, well, whatever it was, it must be within our realm of understanding.
Yeah.
Must be within a subset of what we know, therefore it's primitive and whatever. We might stand to learn something. Like if we'd actually tested these things, like what is the tolerance, apply the best tools we have to try and find out what is that a liquid polish? What is it? How did it work? It's to have smart people speculate about what their function could have been, and then experiment based on that. I don't know. I think we could maybe even learn something.
Yeah. So I agree with that. That it seems like, if what you were saying is right, that you can actually see that the polish or whatever that liquid was penetrated the exterior of the box to a certain degree. So you can see when it's broken that there's this thin layer that could be sampled and looked at. Right, that could be done. And then the other thing we started talking about thermoluminescence, and you asked, well, if they were working on the surfaces, would it still work? And you're right, I don't know. It depends on if their tools make a lot of heat.
Right.
If they were running a saw across any of the surfaces down in there, that would zero it out. But the good thing about that is it doesn't matter, because they weren't running the saw. Like you would assume that the saw, all the polishing work and all the tool work down, it was still being done around the time that they were building the whole all the stuff. So you would still get close to the right date, right? Okay. In other words, it wouldn't get because what you have to have with thermoluminescence or optically stimulated luminescence is you don't want it to get exposed to the sun or fires, right? Anything that warms up the surface of the rock will zero it back out to the time that happens.
Oh,
so yes, so you're right. If they were running a saw and the saw was like heating it up, that would zero it out. But we would still get the date of the work.
Yeah, that would be,
which would be good. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. I was going to say, can't hurt to test it either way. Like that'd be.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that done too.
Yeah, and they could take pieces from the one that was blown up, they're all sitting there inside the box. Just grab one of those as the sample and do some optically stimulated luminescence or thermoluminescence to it, and that would tell. And they probably wouldn't like the numbers they got. That's my guess. Right?
Possibility.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I'd like to see it done. Yeah, I think all of these places that a bit more work. It's just there's a good quote I heard from who was it that makes these great the 3D diagrams. God, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. He does all of the PDFs with the excellent 3D modeling of all of the ancient Egyptian sites. And I was reading a paper of his about and in the closing remarks, the important thing was the quote, which was this fact that it doesn't seem like deep architectural studies or these types of things are much of a priority for modern Egyptology. And I think it's just a sad aspect to it. You know, it's haven't investigated things like the Bent Pyramid well enough to really understand how or why it was built or the extent of how it was built, and things like this, testing like this. You know, something got lost. I think that's why I'm such a fan of Flinders Petrie's, because he would have, I think if he was around today and he had access to the state-of-the-art tools, he would be enthusiastically deploying them everywhere to try and define exactly how precise and how it was done. And, you know, he cared about those engineering aspects to it, but doesn't seem to be a huge priority for a lot of modern Egyptology. Maybe that'll change. We'll see.
Yeah, and I assume, like just so you were saying, you know, you've got to get special permissions just to get in here to look at this stuff. But how would you even get permission? Like, if I'm like, can we take a little piece of that granite and get some testing done? They would never let that happen, right? Probably. I mean, how would you even get permission to do that? You'd have to be connected with some university, and right.
Yeah, university. You'd have to be part of a research institute. You'd have to run any project. Mostly, I mean, they partner with all sorts of different groups. They do some stuff also on their own. The Saqqara documentary was, I think, a local Egyptian dig team that was working for either their university or just for the Department of Antiquities. But, you know, there's a lot. It's like the British at Giza, and there's Czech guys, I think, in Abyssinia. The Germans. There's all different archaeological teams that partner with the Department of Antiquities to do the work. And part of that partnership is generally that the Department of Antiquities controls the release of information, and it all goes through them, and all the particulars go through them in the vetting. So you'd have to, be involved, I think, in that cycle and see if you can do it. They've done optical luminescence testing at other areas.
Yeah.
They did it at Menkaure Pyramid, I think, although they tested in a strange area that seemed like it, you know, there's probably better candidates for areas for testing. But anyway, it's a whole other topic. But maybe they'll do it. I'd love to see it done. It just doesn't. This is a weird site. No one seems to care. Everyone seems to just accept that it's late period or Middle Kingdom.
Yeah, they're like, why would you need to date it? We have the writing right there on the box, right? You know. Yeah.
There's no official controversy or interest even in this site. Like it's and very few tourists go here too. It's, as I said, we talked about Wikipedia earlier. Like the boxes aren't mentioned. Like there's not even a picture. Maybe that's not the fault of anything else, but there's definitely been some edits made to that page that have talked about them and have been, you know, have had the text removed. I'm like, why? I mean, there's such an impressive feature, and just any engineer, stonemason would look at these and be astounded, as they usually are. And they're not something we've ever repeated in stonework today, even though we probably could.
Yep.
But, you know, horrendously expansive. It's just those things are features that are worth mentioning, whether you think the dynastic Egyptians built them or you think they came from maybe a period before that. It's a remarkable feat. But why aren't we sort of looking at it and trying to figure it out a little more? It just gets ignored. So anyway, I'm glad we get to go through it and shine a light on some of it, because it's such a mysterious site. It's my favorite, really.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing all that footage to us. That's really awesome stuff. Yeah, and it's one of my favorites too. I've never been there, but definitely an enigma that I don't know, love learning about it. So
yes, the more we learn about it, the more mysterious it gets, and we've pondered it many times on the show and off. So
we're like 15 minutes over a segment. Should we wrap, or should we take a break, come back and wrap it up, or how do you want to do that? First time.
Either way. First time. I'm happy to wrap. I'm cool. I don't know what your guys' schedule or how you're going to fit this into the podcast, but I mean, I'm happy to wrap. I think it was great, a good time, and if people want to see more of it, then let me know in the comment section below. I'm sure I'd like to think it's been entertaining, a good way to go through these sites. And there's a lot more of these we can do. There's a lot of different topics, and a good chance to get in depth on some of these things. Spend a little more time than just a 10-minute review.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
so we're planning at least one more of these next week, and maybe more. Still not sure what sites we're going to look at next week, but we are going to keep doing this. We're going to give it a shot. So
yeah, I'm definitely interested in these in like the bent pyramid and stuff. I haven't really looked into it that much, but I just remember, a little bit from reading about it that some people think that the geometry of the bent pyramid is actually very intentional and special and important in some ways, and other people are like, oh, it was just too steep, and so then they had to level it off. And
Yeah, we can talk about it because there's some interesting facts about all of that. I've seen some back and forth on Twitter recently about it too. There was a lot of Orthodox viewers that they changed direction halfway up because it collapsed or because they were worried about it collapsing. They actually investigated that. They never found any signs of a collapse. So, and there's a lot more that goes into it as well about its architecture. Yeah, there's a lot. That's a really complicated structure. There's that pyramid. We were talking earlier about the Khafra pyramid, the second pyramid, which is the more megalithic pyramid.
Yep.
And it's impressive from an engineering perspective, and we can go inside and out of that in this style.
Absolutely.
We went in, I think on this last trip, we were in there at least twice, and I've been in there before as well. But I got some great footage from this last trip inside the second pyramid, and also around it and around the outside, which is equally as impressive, really.
That would be great.
Yeah.
We're all about pyramids.
Yeah.
If you didn't know that already.
Yeah.
All the time.
Well, we've got a few pyramids we could hit.
All right. Well, thanks, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Ross and
Looking
Kyle.
forward to
Yeah,
it
me
next
too.
week.
This would be good.
All right.
All right. Good night.
Cheers.
Good night.
All right, well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Russ just dropped his lighter. And
I did.
the video is now closed out. We're just here to say sayonara.
That's right.
That was a great show. God, I don't know. I can't wait to go there.
Yeah. Yeah, when you really need to get there. And we were talking to Ben about that a little bit. So maybe we'll work something out with him and get out there with him. Him and Yusuf.
There's no maybe about that. We're going to do that.
Yeah, we will. We will be doing it. But yeah, it's just he has great footage, and of course the frame of mind in which he goes to the sites is exactly the kind of footage I want to see.
Exactly.
He's thinking about the same stuff we're thinking about when we talk about these sites.
Yep. And that's where the camera goes, and that's
the camera looks.
You're not looking at the top right corner of the camera. Like, oh, stop! Go back.
Yeah. The camera's looking at exactly what you want it to look at. Yeah,
That's right.
That's right.
Definitely check out all of his videos if you haven't already. I mean, I'm sure most of you have, but
Yeah, if you haven't checked out UnchartedX's channel, go check it out.
what the hell is wrong with you? Is basically
He makes he does a wide range of stuff. He does long form podcasts with guests, and it's kind of more free form. He does live streams where he speaks to the audience and answers questions and shows videos. This thing he's doing with us is kind of a new thing, but also he does these extremely well done, very polished, extremely high quality, like what he calls mini documentaries, where he tackles a specific subject or topic on each one and just goes through and shows you using his videos and photos. He writes a script for it and, reads it out, and it's just very well done.
And even if you can't watch it, like we've both listened to his videos at work. And yeah, you're dying to see what he's talking about, but you still get a lot of information.
Yep.
You learn a lot no matter what. So even if you're driving, if you got subscription, YouTube, Red, whatever, throw it on there.
Yep.
Can't watch it.
If you have an Android, you can always get New Pipe.
But yeah, they're great. The footage is beautiful. The video will be coming out. Obviously, people in the future, it's already out. I don't need to say that.
Yep.
On it, but it will be on our YouTube channel as well. And thanks to Ben for that generosity, because he recorded the video on his end, and he's giving his cut of it to us. So
That's right.
much appreciated there, and just the whole thing. We're really excited about doing this, and we've pushed the book report back.
That's
so
right.
for those of you who think that plans work on this podcast,
Now you know.
now you know that you don't know the real plan, or that the plans obviously are not reliable.
Yeah, the plans are subject to change at any minute.
But keep reading that book, because it is coming.
That's right. The book is coming. And yeah, I don't really. I need to kind of think about the stuff we saw. Like we had a lot of discussion about it on the show. I'm thinking like right now, do I have anything to say more to say about it? And I think I want to think about it. And so maybe I'll say a few things in the next episode. But yeah, that was a lot of footage we watched and great conversations. And I still am thinking about form follows function.
Yes.
And I think that's the key thing here. And I completely agree with Ben in the sense that I don't think you should date those artifacts based on the writing that's on those boxes.
I agree with that. And I'm not as clear on all the timeline stuff. Like he knows, and you know this stuff too. Like, Old Kingdom and this and
Yeah,
later,
which
blah, blah,
dynasty
blah, blah.
are we talking about?
Yeah, I'm not up to speed on all that stuff. But Ben also has on his YouTube channel, there's a playlist that is his entire Serapeum series. So you can go there and watch all of that too, where there's a lot of Yusuf talking and explaining things. Like we had little clips of him talking in this show, but there are, a lot of those things that he showed are in full, his entire description of something.
Yes.
And so definitely go check that out. Very, very much worth. I've been able to watch a little bit of it, but one of my plans now is like go sit down in front of the projector and screen and like
watch the whole
turn the lights out at night, cover
Yeah.
up the windows, whatever, and just get that thing on there and watch the entire Serapeum series, because it's great.
It is good. And yeah, if you are planning to go to Egypt anytime soon, get Yusuf as a guide. You can hire him. He does that as a business. Aside from his mason stuff, because he is a stone mason.
Yeah. And that's one of the great things about it, is because when he's talking about the stone and the polishing and the cutting, and he's coming from experience.
Yeah.
He does this, and they have a shop where he's made beautiful artifacts.
That's right.
They're really good. So he knows what it takes, to get the precision and the polishing and all of the things that he talks about in the videos. He understands it.
Yep.
From a hands-on experience. So that's really, it's just the whole context in which, this stuff that Ben delivers is just, it's great all around.
That's right. For anyone interested in this kind of stuff, like us, like all of you, Ben's material is well worth the time it takes to watch and to listen. So I've listened to several of his presentations multiple times because there's just so much information in there.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll keep doing this. I know we're going to do at least one more week and maybe more. We'll see how it goes. That's how we roll here. We don't really plan that far ahead.
That's right.
Learn that. But you guys can get a hold of us, brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com. Check out our website, brothersoftheserpent.com. You can find a whole bunch of cool stuff there on the website. One thing that is there is the archive of old shows, which I need to update. But all the old shows that you can't find in the feed are on the website. There is an archive page that just lists out like from episode 2 all the way up to like episode 70, I think. I need to add up to 100 so that it matches up, because I think there's like 10 that aren't on there that are no longer in the feed if you just joined the feed. But if you've been on our feed for a long time, you'll have all those old episodes in your feed, because most podcast apps don't erase them. It's just if you
isn't there an archive on the Discord too?
Yeah, in the Discord chat, there is a channel called Episode Lists, and it has a link to every single episode. Takes you directly to the website, and you can download the episode there,
Or play it streaming from the browser.
site. Yeah. And also, we are value for value, so help us out. Pyramid scheme is what we call it. You can donate to us through Patreon or PayPal. And thanks so much to all of you who have done that. Yeah. And to all of you who have donated to Ben's show, because I imagine there will be some crossover here. So all of you who support UnchartedX, thank you so much as well. Everybody who supports this kind of work, we really appreciate it. So yeah, give us reviews. Check out our Discord chat if you want to join in on the conversation. Ben also has one for UnchartedX. I'm in there, so I join in on the conversations there as well. There's a lot of crossover between our listeners and his, so I see the same people in the chats talking. So we both have a Discord. And thanks to History Shift for making all of our YouTube videos for us. So Ben is going to do the hard work on this one, and then History Shift is going to match it up with our audio. So, which is still a big job. So we really appreciate all the work he's done for that.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so yeah, aside from the all the shout outs to UnchartedX, I also want to give a special shout out to the crew of Chrome 90. Thank you guys. You have no idea how much that affected us. So thank you so much, really.
That's right.
And as for all you listeners, we love you.
Always have.
Always will.
Good night, Adamu.
Get back to work.
Woo!